Captain's Log, October 29th, 2014. A couple weeks ago, I did a Captain's Log about DC's and Warner's alleged big long-term plan for their superhero movies and their list of titles and when they're going to come out. And now Marvel has finally followed up and given their answer to that, their list of all the movies they're going to put out in the next several years. And the big difference between the two is that Marvel has had their shared universe established for so long, and it has proven it, and is clearly willing to take really crazy risks and try properties that we haven't seen before, and that we would never have figured probably would ever be put on screen. And so we can be pretty sure that these things are all actually going to happen. With DC, I was really leery of it. I was like, well, there's a little bit of a boy who cried wolf thing here where, like, I'll believe it when I see it. Marvel puts theirs out, and I'm like, okay, here's their plan. Not to mention the fact that there are a lot of things here that we had heard were probably happening, maybe happening, rumory things that are now confirmed. The other big difference between the two is logos. When Marvel announces movies, they like to put a logo with it to kind of affirm, yes, this is confirm, yes, this is definitely happening. We've got a logo. Once you've got a logo, it's happening, man. It's set in stone. There we go. We're gonna make this movie. I would bet money almost that the very next announcement that comes from Warner's, the very next thing we see from them, is a Justice League logo. That's probably what that's probably gonna be their response to this. So what we're seeing here is a lot of fierce competition. I've read some blogs and articles that have called this aggressive, and I completely agree with that. At the same time, I am not at all surprised by this announcement of this many movies. I'm hearing people saying, oh man, Marvel's really money milking. They're going to try to make as much money off of these properties as humanly possible, and they're rushing things out, and they're going to force these things into the theater as fast as humanly possible, and we're getting too many, and oh no, the quality is going to wane. I'm not too worried about that, for a couple of reasons. First of all, for me, their track record is pretty proven so far. Some of their movies are not as great as others. I didn't love Iron Man 2, I didn't love Thor: The Dark World, but they're not bad movies, and I don't think that, I haven't seen anything from Marvel yet that seemed like just a really fast, awful rush job just to get it out there and make the bazillions of dollars. The thing is, when you're creating a big expansive universe like this, and you're going with a comic book model, you're going to see exponential growth of quantity of films. That's natural if you are gonna keep trying stuff and keep attempting characters that maybe years ago we would have never thought would have been good big screen properties. If I'm Marvel right now, I'm saying thank God for Guardians of the Galaxy. That has proven, that really funny SNL sketch about how they could put out a movie about a lady in a shopping cart and people would go see it. That's what we're seeing, is that they took a thing that very few people, especially in the mainstream, had ever heard of, and made it mainstream, made those characters A-list properties, and people loved it, and people went and saw it, and so that's proving that they can try these kinds of characters out. So I don't think it's necessarily too many, unless, of course, they get too complacent. You know, if Marvel, and I don't think that's going to happen, but if Marvel Studios gets too complacent and they say, well, we don't need quality anymore, we don't have to try to keep pushing envelopes and making the best films we can, and all we have to do now is pick a character nobody's ever heard of and they kind of slap it together and put it out there. Yes, of course, that would be awful, but my attitude is let's wait and see where it goes. Marvel Studios is a studio, and that's different than just a franchise. What I mean is, if you made like 4 Batman movies every year, that might be a little too much, unless they were all of different continuities and different teams and things. You know, Vince has said on camera a number of times, I wouldn't mind if there were multiple Batman franchises going on at the same time if they were all really good. I like Batman. It's all about quality. Like people can get burnt out on this stuff, sure, but I guess I've been talking a lot about oversaturation lately in these videos, but it's a thing that keeps coming up, and so I felt the need to address it real quick here before I get into all the movies. I just think that as long as as long as the quality's good and as long as there's some variety and we're telling a lot of different kinds of stories, Marvel Studios is a studio. So you know, lots of movie studios put out more than one movie a year. Marvel is now a proven thing. They have the money and they have the resources and the talent to do more than one of these a year, and it just so happens that they're all set in the same continuity and they can cross all those characters together. I think it's also important to note that we have a lot of successful, proven franchises now all inside the same continuity. So naturally, you're going to get more movies every year if they're successful and people want to see more. Guardians did well, so we want to see a second one. Is that money milking? Is that just rehash? Do we have to have a sequel to that? See, I don't think it is, because that's an origin film. That's a setup movie. I really like that movie, but now that we've gotten that cast together, that crew together, I want to see them go on and have other adventures. The other thing that I think is important to note is that these characters were all originally intended, they were invented for ongoing stories and for a lot of for long ongoing narrative, for repeat adventures. So I don't, we used to, it used to be with superhero movies before we had this big onslaught of them, and they became like, really popular and kind of the big family thing now, where you get a movie and it might get a sequel or it might not, but the whole point was just simply exposure. So we do an origin movie, we set the character up so that people are so that people know about the character, and then maybe it'll get a sequel, maybe it won't. Now, when they do well, we immediately greenlight sequels because that's what they're for. And yeah, it is kind of irritating sometimes that everything's got to be a franchise, but in the superhero department, it makes a lot of sense because, as I keep saying, we're blurring the lines between TV shows and movies, and what we have right now is a Marvel Comics universe in film. If the movies are good, it makes sense to have a whole lot of them. You don't look at comics, you don't look at the Marvel Universe in comics and say, oh, you have too many properties, you shouldn't make... Well, we do sometimes complain that there are too many books, I'll grant you that, but I mean, like, we don't complain that, say, like, the 20 or 30 biggest characters always have ongoings, and we never cancel them because we want to see them, and it is fun to see them cross, and that kind of thing. My big question about this is, and this is the one place where I'm a little concerned. Obviously, I'm defending Marvel in making this many movies. I think it is really neat that after Guardians, they're going to try stuff like Black Panther and Captain Marvel especially. I mean, that was the big one that people figured, okay, they're going to want to do a movie about a female main character. People are really clamoring for that to finally happen. If they don't do Black Widow, who's it going to be? Captain Marvel makes a lot of sense because, at least in the geek world, recently her comic book was really successful, but also it's got Marvel in the title. I mean, like immediately it's a really good fit to sell a movie for the studio. But I'm defending it for that. I think that is really exciting. Inhumans is a big wild card. That's a thing that a lot of people have no idea what that even is, won't know most of the characters in that, and might fall in love with Black Bolt and characters like that the way that they did Guardians, although it'll be a very, very different thing. And I do see a lot of variety here. I think there's a lot of different kinds of films being made here, even though they're all in the same continuity. It doesn't feel like the same thing over and over again. So that's all really exciting to me. But I think, the one reservation I have, the one question I have is, at what point is it too much of a time and money commitment for your average movie-going audience? Forget people like me. Forget guys like me that are going to go to all of these things and that are going to take this in as an expansive universe and like to look at this as Marvel whatever 24. A lot of, I do think that you are going to have some moviegoers that are going to want to be able to pick and choose and go to the ones that they're interested in. You had a lot of people that went to Guardians that maybe didn't even see Winter Soldier, where the comedy sci-fi thing was more their bag, or they they saw commercials for it and it just seemed fun, and so they went and saw it, or word of mouth, that kind of thing. And so I'm just wondering at what point we get to a place where it gets really, I think this is the big challenge, where it gets really hard for Marvel to put out movies that you can see without seeing all of them. And I think I'm thinking that mostly because we're starting to get really event-minded with the Civil War thing, and then with Infinity War. So anyway, I don't know, that's my question. I wonder what that's going to end up being like, and like I said, I'm really interested in the competition thing with DC, and I won't rehash too much of what I said in my last video about all this stuff when I was talking about the DC properties, but I do think that all of this competition could be really good for the viewer. It could make the studios more creative. They've got to keep stepping their game up in order to compete with each other. And 3 really solid, good movies a year from each studio, I don't think is too much. 3 really shoddy, not all that great, trying to just be as big as humanly possible and blow up as much stuff as possible. Yeah, that would be annoying. But I think people are going to vote with their dollar, and if that starts happening and the movies aren't good, then they're gonna have to change what they're doing. That's my hope. Anyway, so I don't know. I just don't want the name of the game to be bigger and bigger and bigger. And if, I don't know, like I said, if the stories are great, then okay. But I don't know. We've got, just getting so event-minded gives me a little bit of pause. I'm excited about them. It's just, it's a lot at once, right? Like, between now and 2019, we're gonna have Civil War. We're gonna have Thor Ragnarok. Obviously, that sounds really big and massive in scale. I don't know exactly what that's going to be based on and all of that. I don't know if that will feel eventy, but with a title like that, I imagine it'll be like, this is just my prediction, but I imagine it'll be like Captain America Civil War will, where it won't just be Thor, it'll be other characters mixed in. I'd be really surprised if it wasn't that. And then we're getting into Infinity War, a couple of really big events, and it's going to be interesting to see how they permeate and what effect they have on the rest of the movies and that kind of thing. So anyway, I'll go ahead and go down the list now and talk about each of them individually very briefly. So Civil War I've already talked a lot about. We now have that confirmed title. There was that joke there for a minute that, oh, it's going to be Serpent Society. I think that's kind of funny. Now we know for sure that it's Civil War. The big question now for me is that going to set up a Civil War status quo, or is it really going to be Civil War in 2 hours? Is it going to be like a smaller, more truncated version of what Civil War was in the comics, or is it going to be the full-blown Superhero Registration Act and the lines are drawn in the sand, and all the way up until Infinity War through 7 other movies we have this Civil War status quo? Where else would that get where else would that get changed? I don't know. Like the prevailing theory before, in the video I did a couple weeks ago, I talked about this, was that that movie wasn't going to be Civil War. It was going to be the start of it. But it is confirmed that it is called Civil War, and then immediately right after that we're doing Black Panther. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what exactly is going on there. Then we've got Black Panther. No big surprise there, really. I mean, it could be great. I'm not as excited about Black Panther and Inhumans as I am the rest of these. I've never been a big T'Challa fan. He's okay. I don't know what it is. I think it's the setting, really, of Wakanda that just doesn't get me real jazzed. I'm not a big, like, jungle fiction kind of guy. I don't know. So I'm hoping that that does what Thor did for me with its first movie and get me more interested in this character and looking into him. I mean, I know a little bit about Black Panther here and there. He certainly has his place in the Marvel Universe, but, you know, it's got a lot of people really happy because of the whole, you know, minority thing and finally giving a black character his own movie and that kind of thing. I think there's also some competition in that arena, each studio trying to get, you know, minority and women movies out as early as possible because people are clamoring for that, and they know that that's going to equal box office dollars. I hope that those movies are handled really well, and that it's simply, minorities, a black person, and like a movie starring a woman that's simply a really good movie, and that it's not like, pushing in our face, hey, look at us, we're so progressive, we've got a movie starring a girl. Yeah, just make your movie. So, but I trust Marvel. I think they'll do this right. Doctor Strange is no surprise at all. Of course, we knew that was coming. Right now, it looks like Benedict Cumberbatch is still likely to get the role. Kevin Feige came out yesterday and said, no, it's not confirmed yet, but even though a lot of sites were claiming the day before that it was confirmed, but importantly, he wasn't saying, I've never heard of this, what's this Benedict Cumberbatch thing? He said that they didn't have a deal yet, so it looks like, we've had this with some other actors before in Marvel stuff, it looks like that is who they're going after right now, and they just don't have a deal yet. I bet in the next week or two we get an announcement about it. Once again, Captain Marvel, that's really exciting for I don't know, for lots of reasons. Once again, it's a character that a lot of people don't know real well. She is another, like, really kind of, like, upstanding, almost, like, Captain America type in her values, at least of what I understand of her, though I don't know a lot about Captain Marvel. But I'm excited to see more, really optimistic type characters get adapted. It'll be really interesting to see who gets cast there, and Steve Baxi suggested on Facebook Yvonne Strahovski, which I think is a really good pick. Manos really wants Katie Sackhoff, which is a different kind of direction than I would expect they'd want to go with her, because Katie Sackhoff usually plays really kind of, like, sort of butch characters, but I could see her being played that way. So either of those, depending on how she's characterized, I think are really possible. It would really surprise me if that role in particular was an actor we've never heard of. I kind of think they'll go after somebody pretty well known for that role. By the way, Black Panther was cast. I don't have his name here. He wasn't anybody I recognized, but he's been cast. Guardians of the Galaxy 2, of course. We knew that was coming. That was already announced. We've got that right smack dab in the middle, and then Inhumans is coming. What is Inhumans going to be like? Is it going to be their X-Men? Is that kind of how they're going to play it? Or are they going to do the same kinds of themes of bigotry and that kind of stuff, or is it going to go in somewhat of a different direction? And I'm very curious to see what the whole thing about the Inhumans is about, because we haven't had any pop up yet. Now, everybody's saying Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch are probably Inhumans. That's been, again, the prevailing theory for a long time, and I think that's probably true, but considering that nobody even knew that there were superpowered people before the Avengers movie started, and even after, even during Iron Man, it seems like they'll probably do something like they've done recently in the comics, where a bunch of people who didn't know they were Inhumans or something activated. I would imagine that's where they'll go with that. And then Thor Ragnarok. Really exciting, kind of provocative title. Ragnarok's always a really big thing in Thor. They're always preparing for the end of the world. Interesting to have a movie called Ragnarok right before Infinity War. How much is that going to set up Thanos? How much is Thanos involved in that, I wonder? It'd be weird if that was a completely separate thing and didn't have anything to do with Infinity War, given that both are very end-of-the-worldy type scenarios. And then we get into Infinity War, and this is really interesting to me because actually, I'm sorry for. Let me go back for a minute, because Inhumans and Captain Marvel are both after the first Infinity War. I'm looking at this thing that's got them all stacked on top of each other, and a couple are out of order. But anyway, so this is my big question with Avengers. First of all, let me backtrack for a minute and say that I got to see a still of Thanos with his Infinity Gauntlet, and apparently there's like a couple-minute trailer already with Thanos CGI about Infinity War that was shown at Comic-Con, and a couple people told me that they've seen it. I've not seen that, but I saw the still of Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet, and of course that got me really giddy. But anyway, Infinity War is really interesting because they've got it put in two parts, and they each come exactly 1 year apart from each other. So how does that work? Because we're going to have two movies in between, at least. Yeah, let's see. Captain Marvel 2018. Yeah, we're gonna have a couple movies in between. So my question is that a movie that ends on a cliffhanger the way it looks like it might, the way it reads? Because it's like, okay, part 1, part 2. This is not the kind of thing where it's like we have a movie. You know, it's not like Back to the Future. You know, where like each one is kind of a separate movie. I mean, the way that they've labeled this, it's got like one title and then two parts underneath it. So this is a two-part story that's going to take two movies to tell. Are we going to start doing stuff out of sequence finally? Is that what's happening? Because so far everything has been linear in the Marvel Studios movies, and in the way they've put them out. Is this going to be like we have a cliffhanger, and then we have a couple movies that happen after that, but they happen even after all of this, or they happen somewhere out of sequence? Or is Infinity War going to be the status quo during those things? I'm interested to see. It's kind of the same thing with Civil War. It's like we're going to set this up, and then how long does it go? Anyway, mostly I'm just asking questions because that's really all I can do right now. It's all really exciting. It's going to be fun. You know, as a fan, I love getting to see stuff that expands my knowledge and understanding and appreciation for these properties. I don't know anything hardly about Inhumans. I didn't read Inhumanity. I wasn't interested in it. I'm hoping that that movie gets me excited about those characters and that whole concept. And that it spins it a little and separates itself from X-Men somehow. Captain Marvel's the same way. And once again, Black Panther. I'm hoping maybe the Black Panther movie can turn me into more of a fan of that character. But obviously, there is a whole lot of different kinds of films in different kinds of genres, and none of us have to be a huge fan of all of them. And so, as I said, I'm hoping that they all still stand alone pretty well, even in building on all of this lore that we're getting. Thanks a lot for watching. Sure appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing your comments. Let me know what you think about all of the announcements. Which movie are you most excited about? The answer to that for me right now is, I mean, obviously Infinity War, because I love Thanos, and I've been waiting for that forever. By the way, I didn't say this, but I should also mention, yay, they announced Infinity War, because now we finally know where the Infinity stuff is going and when. I mean, I've been complaining that they've been telling us too much, but all I mean is, with Civil War getting announced and that kind of stuff, for a while folks were kind of going, okay, when does the Infinity stuff pay off? So that's the thing. It's kind of nice to know that they at least have definite, solid plan now. But besides that, I don't know. I'm gonna say Civil War because I want to see it done better than I thought it was done in the comics, and because seeing a movie that finally pays off in big ways, as I'm sure it's going to, all of the cool, subtle and otherwise, like comparison contrast between the ideologies of Captain America and Iron Man, I think would make for a wonderful character study of those two guys in just one film. So I'm really excited about that. Anyway, leave your comments. Looking forward to reading them. And in the meantime, I am Captain Logan, and this concludes today's Captain's Log.